What scientific experiment would you run if money and ethics weren't an issue? I'd raise a group of children from birth to adulthood, kinda a Truman Show thing, without any contact with music and see how it affects their lives and personalities. I'd make sure everything else would be normal but music would be edited out of their lives. What could be really interesting is if you only play them music in odd time signatures like 5/8 or 7/8 and saw how their music developed from there. Our music is based mainly around 4/4 and 3/4 etc, so it would likely be really different. The Doctor Who episode wherein they bred artificially grown humans, infect them each with all known diseases so that they can develop antibodies cures. That episode haunts me NGL. Not necessarily a scientific experiment, but a series of experiments to see how you can control nerve sensations from the brain and whether it can create VR that can perfectly mimic the sensation of touch whilst being motionless, as if you're moving and touching something in a virtual world but not in the real world. Is that even possible? Calm down Akihiko Koba. I'd study the long-term effects of low G on humans by sending a habitat to the moon and then sending supplies and volunteers. And I'd send a lunar bulldozer to cover the habitat with regolith because I'm not particularly interested in contaminating my results with radiation exposure. I'd especially love to see them on someone born in such an environment if possible. Redesigning the human sinus. I wish to find a way to modify the body to fix that mess of an airway. Sometimes I think about how there's just hollow cavities behind your face and get really anxious. Specifically the Mayo Clinic illustration that comes up when you Google sinusitis. That crap makes my chest tight. Have a baby human raised by apes, basically to see if Tarzan scenario would occur and the human is able to communicate fully with the apes. With Elon Musk's Neurolink thing, the first thing I thought of was an unethical experiment. If you attached a whole bunch of wires to the speech center and audio center of the brain of a bunch of children and network them together, I wonder what kind of language they would develop and how they would communicate with what is essentially telepathy. We are the Borg. You will be assimilated. Your biological and technological distinctiveness will be added to our own. Resistance is futile. Double quote. Force compliance on specific diets with a diverse sample of people and a well-regulated control group. Follow for 10+ years. Is veganism really healthy? How about paleo? Should we never be eating gluten or dairy? Edit to add. This has definitely not been done before because there are several problems with this kind of study. You can't force people to comply to a diet, which is the first hurdle. You could have people voluntarily report what they eat, but this isn't a randomized trial and has its own issues. Recall issues, compliance, self-selection bias, etc. You're also missing a good control group to compare results to. Then if there is a population that follows a certain diet, say people from the Mediterranean following the Mediterranean diet, you run into the problem of correlation versus causation. There could be something different about their lifestyle that is explaining the health differences besides diet. Same issue as above, no control group. There's also the huge issue of not having a longitude study. Most short-term trials examining diets are just that, short-term. It's hard to ascertain if there are health effects show up 10 or 20 years down the road. Also, people claiming that they know what diets are healthy unhealthy. I'm sure that's true of some diets types of foods, and research non-experimental data, even with its flaws, can point us in the right direction. I'd feel pretty good saying that eating more vegetables is healthier for the vast majority of people. Eating Doritos is not healthy for the vast majority of people. But there is so much we don't know about optimal nutrition and how different populations react to food. I'd love to see an actual high quality experiment. The Gilligan's Island experiment. Shipwreck 100 people with vastly different backgrounds, wealth disparity, and personalities on a remote island. See what kind of civilization grows from it. Then do it 50 more times to check results against each other. How would the world react to a mountain of 100 billion pennies for free in the middle of a major area? This sounds so dumb but is really freaking interesting if you think about it. Oh man, I love this question. There are a ton of geoengineering experiments that I'd love to run if they weren't both 1. Illegal, 2. Insanely expensive. 3. Non-zero possibility of death and destruction. Iron fertilization. Basically dumping tons of iron dust into the ocean to cause an algae bloom, which should sequester a bunch of carbon and help mitigate global warming. Cloud seeding. Space mirrors. Dropping a nuke into a volcano. You know, normal stuff. How athletes from different sports react to fight or flight. Even further, would they fight differently than others? UFC fighters just walking around killing all of the other athletes. Dinosaur cloning. What else is there to do? Humans have quite a few movies that tell you that dinosaur cloning is a bad idea on Earth. Genetic altering of humans. I don't currently have an issue with anyone that wants to do it on themselves. However, to do it to an embryo or through the parent's DNA to see what we could do to advance humans would be amazing. Alterations to intelligence, memory, physical attributes, gills to swim underwater, visual alterations to see the full light spectrum and hearing for the full sound spectrum, immunity to all diseases and harmful bacteria, ability to eat almost anything for sustenance. Definitely this and cloning. If we had no qualms about the ethical implications, we would make leaps and bounds in biological sciences. I'd want to see what a society of children would do on their own if they were alone from birth. Of course, adjustments would have to be made for when they were infants, but beyond that, how would they develop language, ethics, mythology, culture, and as they got older, how would they handle coming of age without adult role models? Though unethical, I think an experiment like that would answer a lot of questions about sociology, psychology, anthropology, and philosophy. It would be like watching the beginning of human society from scratch, with no external influence. Kill the pig. Cut his throat. Kill the pig. Bash him in. See if a monkey tribe could become dominant over the rest by training them to make and use weapons and other primitive technology. Also interested in seeing if they would take their newfound knowledge and begin to expand an empire. I've always wanted to try to breed a winter blooming rose. Ethics are fine, but the cost of having that many roses in a hothouse and the decades of selective breeding most likely required to accomplish it would cost an astronomical amount, so I'm sticking with it. This is one of the most interesting replies I've read that isn't cruel or obscure. It seems so simple and achievable, yet I fully understand the ridiculous amount of money and work involved as you described it, to achieve the desired outcome. Near-death experiences, and what people see. So basically I'd want to kill a bunch of people then bring them back to life. I'm sure a lot of them wouldn't make it back. I want to send someone to space without a spacesuit. I've read about everything that can happen. I just want to see it on film. Teach a kid the wrong words for everything and see how long it takes for them to adapt. Another edit. Thanks for the gold. Also, it seems a fair number of people have done this to kids on a very small basis. Seriously, do not do this to anyone on any scale. This post is based on the concept of setting morals aside. This is a massively horrible thing to do. I read a short story where a man did this to his daughter and she ended up killing him inadvertently because she was asked if there was anyone in the burning house he was trapped in, and she said no while meaning yes. I'll see if I can dig up the source for you. How children develop when occasionally microdosing LSD. Or how they develop when the mom takes LSD and psychoactive drugs while pregnant. How long a decapitated head stays conscious. All we have are anecdotes that might have been exaggerated. I've always wanted a definitive answer, but you know, ethics. It's been done 7-10 seconds, so you gotta start planning on your last words now, you won't have time then. My current is I'm going to head out. Brain transplants from humans to animals and vice versa. I've actually thought a ton about this. I would put two people through the exact same conditions the entire life. Now I'm not talking just similar scenarios, but everything from the weather inside the womb to the humans they interact with to the wind every day. And I would see if they are the same. Essentially, if humans are born with personalities or if we develop them through little things all our life. Essentially the butterfly effect. TBH, this probably wouldn't even be possible with infinite money, but it would be cool. I would really love to read a paper about this experiment. TBH. Have an Olympics where every single athlete is drugged to an insane level. I think it would raise what is possible by today's standards drastically. Not just drugs, bionic parts, gene therapy, hormone treatments, the Mega Olympics, where you can match a man-horse hybrid race against the $6 million man. Raise a child without ever punishing or rewarding them. Just let them do whatever they want, and then see what happens to their behavior when they age. They will still be punished and rewarded by their environment. This will only answer the question to what environment was the kid born in, rather than, perhaps, breaking down inherent genetic aspect of behavior. Pretty much any vault tech experiment. I'd love to pit elite Madden gamers versus NFL play callers and see who is better at game management and play calling. Hail Mary every freaking time. They'll never see it coming. I'd run a serial killer contest. First person to successfully kidnap and kill 50 people receives $10 million 1 year after the last kill, if they are not caught by authorities and if they can prove the killings. How many persons would undertake this? How many victims would there be? Can I just say, if they created a show series with this plot, I'd definitely watch it. I would breed and engineer dogs to become more intelligent, until they can understand the concept of "I am coming back soon." Don't worry, they deserve it for helping us get this far as a species. I'd train gorillas in weightlifting, really see how tanked they can get, boost them with steroids along the way. After that, I take my army of beasts, pump them full of C, and let them loose in an empty shopping mall. Wanna see which stores they like and which ones they don't, you know, for science and shit. To measure the effect on development of humankind by eliminating the least intelligent 5% of the human population every year based on monthly standardized testing. Dang, this film sounded great till I found out Logan Paul was in it. Iron Man suit. Ethics don't even need to be ignored. I just really want a complete Iron Man suit with all the weapons, flight and Friday. I've always been really curious what the results of the Holocaust twin experiments would be if they were run by a sane person. If I didn't have to worry about the fact that I was slaughtering a bunch of children, which very much goes against my morals, I'd recreate those. Put 100 babies from different countries on an island with a bunch of mute caretakers. Then see what their language would sound like. There is actually something like this. I don't have a link or anything, but a king sent some kids to a mute caregiver and they were isolated. The goal here was to see what the true language was. They decided upon Egyptian because a kid said the Egyptian word for bread, but I assume it was just the rambling of a crazy person. Put a baby in a pure white room at room temperature and find a way keep them alive with no human interference. What would they do for their whole life? It would fail to thrive and probably die, or just not develop at all and likely be similar to a vegetable but moving and breathing. No personality, no speech, its brain would probably actually be underdeveloped, so it would have an intellectual delay. ITD have an intellectual delay anyway due to lack of learning. I would try to raise mentats, Dune style. More specifically, I would take young children and subject them to an extremely demanding teaching and testing regime. Then I would use the results to try to find out, as early as possible, which children would fare better, and improve the quality of the teaching and conditioning, largely to make their first allegiance be to the school. After a few decades, I think that we might get a system to generate geniuses pretty much on demand, and naturally, the best of them would be tasked with leading and refining further the teaching. Which prescription drugs aren't really dangerous to mix with alcohol, and to what dosage can you be closest to death without dying so I can get litty? You have been visited by the romantic doggo. Comment love is magic so you never fall in the friend zone. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.